most of what keeps you awake at night isn't noise from outside, it's your own mind. And here's the shocking truth. Both Taoists and Stoics agreed that the storm of worry comes almost entirely from resisting what is. In this video, you'll discover how a simple shift in perspective, trusting the current instead of clinging to the rocks, can dissolve that inner noise and invite real stillness. The storm inside the mind. Imagine lying still at night, yet your thoughts race as if you were running uphill. Your body is ready for rest, but your mind keeps summoning new scenes and questions, circling the same worries, reshaping them in countless forms. What keeps you awake is not the sound of cars outside or the hum of an appliance. It is the ceaseless chatter inside, the voice that tells you a story about what happened today or what may happen tomorrow. Sleeplessness often feels like an invasion, as though something external has broken the fragile boundary of calm. But the real disturbance comes from within. You lie there, noticing the stillness of the room, and yet inside, your mind drafts its own storm. It replays an unfinished task. It imagines conversations that never occurred. It carries out arguments that will never take place. The body rests on the bed, but internally you sprint with no finish line in sight. This tension grows sharper when we remember how much our culture trains us to take control. You spend your days scheduling, planning, producing, measuring progress. Control becomes the language of survival. Productivity is praised, speed is normal, multitasking is celebrated. And when night comes, that same instinct does not dissolve. It stays active. It whispers, fix this problem, replay that detail, organize for tomorrow. But the more you push to master your thoughts, the more tangled they become. As though wrestling wind with bare hands. Here lies a simple paradox. Wind itself does no harm when it brushes across your skin. But trying to stop the wind, holding out boards or blankets, standing rigid against it, this is what drains you. A gust is not dangerous. Your resistance is the weight. And sleeplessness, like the storm, exhausts you not because of the events of your day, but because of the effort to stop the mind from moving. Both Stoic and Taoist teachings point to the same truth. It is not the event itself that unsettles you, but the way you label and judge it. Imagine waiting for an important email. The message has not arrived. If you simply notice its absence, there is no suffering. But if you tell yourself, they have ignored me, they are rejecting me, they are losing interest, suddenly the silence of the inbox becomes unbearable. The event itself remains the same. No email. The pain is created in your framing of it. The Stoics repeat this lesson over and over. Your perception shapes your experience. Change the story the mind tells, and the emotion that follows changes too. Taoism reminds you of flow, the way water bends around rock, not with judgment, but with effortless adjustment. Together, both perspectives invite you to pause before grabbing onto any label that rises inside the mind. They urge you to step back from the quick reflex to say, this is good, this is bad, this must be solved now. At night, when your thoughts whirl faster, notice how easily a single idea snowballs. A simple memory of something left undone turns into a blanket claim about failure. A minor delay becomes proof of chaos in the future. In truth, nothing has changed around you. The room is the same, the walls unshifting, your breath steady. What changes is the instant commentary your mind provides. And by resisting those comments, by trying to suppress each one, you pour more energy into the storm. What if the real answer to insomnia does not lie in fixing the storm, but in resting at its center? Picture a hurricane seen from above. The outer ring throws debris, crushes, shatters. But the eye is calm, a space of still air despite the rage around it. To rest inside your own storm of thought is not to stop each gust, but to notice the place of quiet within you, the eye that remains untouched. When you stop swatting at each passing wind, you discover that the storm can roar while you stay still. The key is not the silence of the world outside, but the softening of judgment inside. Sleeplessness often comes not from what was said, what was done, or what has not yet occurred. It comes from insisting that it should be different, that it must be resolved right now, that your life cannot move on until every piece is aligned. Drop those judgments, even for a while, and see what remains. Only the body lying down, only the breath rising and falling, only night passing into morning. This insight is as practical as it is ancient. You can test it in small ways. Notice tomorrow when something minor delays your plan. A train you hope to catch leaves before you. A reply you expected does not arrive. Before judgment leaps in, pause. Say to yourself, there is simply no reply, nothing more. The heaviness you often carry arises only after your mind insists on what it means. And if you remove that meaning, the weight loosens. So the lesson here is simple but profound. It is rarely the event that keeps you awake. It is the judgment about the event. The storm is not the racing wind. You are built to survive that. The storm is the endless attempt to resist, to redefine, to protest against each gust. Peace begins as soon as you learn to stand in the calm center and let the wind circle. The farmer and the horse. What if every so-called good or bad event in your life was not the final word at all, but only the start of another story? Imagine holding a moment of triumph and realizing it may carry unseen hardship, or facing a setback and finding it might open a door you had never noticed. This is the lesson hidden inside one of the most repeated parables from Taoist tradition, the story of a farmer and his horse. Let me start with that story. There was a farmer whose horse one day ran away. A horse in that time was not just an animal. It was labor, wealth, and a mark of security. The neighbors came rushing over, shaking their heads. They said, "This is terrible, such bad luck." The farmer's answer was brief. He said, "Perhaps." A few days later, the horse returned, and with it came a second horse, strong, untamed, as if drawn by invisible ties back to the man's land. This time the neighbors congratulated him. They said, "What good fortune! Now you are richer than before." Again, the farmer said, "Perhaps." Soon after, the farmer's son climbed onto the new horse in an attempt to tame it. The animal threw him, breaking the young man's leg. Neighbors gathered again. "What misfortune," they said. "How tragic." The farmer did not shout, did not despair. He answered the same way as before. "Perhaps." Not long after, military officials came through the village, conscripting the young men for war. When they saw the farmer's son with a broken leg, they passed him over. The neighbors whispered that what had seemed terrible was in fact a hidden blessing. And still, the farmer repeated, "Perhaps." This story has lasted for centuries, not because of the horse, or the war, or the neighbors, but because of the farmer's restraint. He does not jump ahead to declare what each moment means. He does not solidify judgment before events have unfolded. For him, an occurrence is simply an occurrence. Its value, its outcome, its impact cannot yet be known. Now, notice how unlike this is from the way we usually respond to life. Think about the last time something shifted suddenly. Perhaps a job offer was withdrawn, a relationship altered course, or travel plans dissolved at the last moment. Most of us feel compelled to declare what it means right away. We say, "This is awful, life is against me." Or we say, "This is wonderful, everything is perfect now." The farmer's words interrupt that cycle. His, perhaps, defers judgment and keeps open space, like leaving a window unlatched so air can still pass. The pull to place an immediate label is strong. Your mind wants clarity. It wants every event to fall neatly into a box, success or failure, blessing or curse. But in truth, events rarely stop at point one. They unfold like a chain. And what appears dreadful today may, in a week, reveal itself to be a turning point. What appears favorable today may tomorrow show its weight. The wisdom here is to remember that life refuses to fit into fixed categories. The farmer's calm teaches something simple but challenging. Judgments disrupt peace more than events themselves. His horse leaves, he does not rage. His son breaks a leg, he does not collapse into despair. His restraint protects him from the emotional turbulence that comes when we fix meanings onto things too quickly. He knows that life is wider, that no single turn ends the road. Carrying this into your own days means adopting a kind of looseness. When plans unravel, instead of tightening your grip, you soften it. Rather than stamping the label good or bad, hold the space open, trusting that more will come. By refusing to bind yourself to quick interpretation, you free yourself from much of the emotional seesaw that makes life exhausting. This does not mean you become passive or ignore what happens. The farmer still farmed, still cared for his son, still lived his life. The lesson is not inactivity, it is equanimity. You act, but you do not let your mind spin labels that lock you into distress. Taoism calls this balance a way of harmony with the flow of things, accepting both the bends of the river and the rocks that line its course without insisting the water stop moving. We can return to the horse itself as metaphor. You may try to tame events, ride them, command them like a steed, yet they often buck and run their own way. What the farmer models is something less forceful. He does not chase frantically after the animal, nor celebrate excessively when it returns. He accepts the horse's movements as part of a wider rhythm he cannot control. When you adopt this stance, inner turmoil begins to ease. Anxieties shrink because they no longer feed on the need to know now. You reclaim energy that would have been spent obsessing over labels. Peace arises not by controlling events, but by loosening your grip on the instant judgment of them. The Taoist lesson from this parable is equanimity. Not detachment as indifference, but non-attachment to rigid outcomes. You engage with life fully while allowing space for uncertainty without reflexive panic. This keeps the heart steady in the same way that balanced weight keeps a boat from tipping as it moves with the tide. If Taoism frames calm as going with the current, then Stoicism takes up the question of how reason can meet the storms head-on. It shows you how to reframe circumstance, not by labeling less, but but by choosing the most useful frame through which to see it. Thus, from the farmer's perhaps, we turn to the Stoic call to reshape thought deliberately, to face events in a way that steadies rather than unsettles the mind. 4. The Stoic practice of reframing. What if the quickest way to shrink a problem was to rename it? Think about that for a moment. Problems often appear as giant walls, immovable and cold. But words, the way you describe those walls to yourself, can make them higher or lower. In Stoicism, this practice of shifting language and perspective is called reframing. It is the habit of seeing events not only as challenges, but as raw materials for inner strength. The Stoics lived in a world hardly gentler than ours: political upheaval, loss, disease. Yet they passed on a system of thought that allows the mind to face hardship without being crushed. Their key claim is simple: events do not disturb you, your judgment about those events does. And judgment is shaped in part by words, the names you give to what happens. When you change those names, the story you tell yourself changes, and along with it, the feeling in your chest. Most people meet adversity as something to fight against: a bad day at work, an argument with a partner, a missed opportunity. All get stored under one label: obstacle. But Stoicism suggests that labeling them as obstacles is a choice, not a fact written in the universe. What if the argument is the practice ground for patience? What if the missed opportunity clears a path to one better aligned with who you are? Problems then stop being dead ends and instead become tools, as if life keeps handing you new weights to build strength. Marcus Aurelius, a Stoic emperor, reminded himself daily that life is shaped not by fact alone, but by opinion. You wake up to rain, and your first thought might be, "This ruins my walk. This is awful." That thought immediately sours the day. But pause and describe it differently. The air is fresh, the ground is nourished, the cool drops soothe my skin. Same rain, new name, lighter experience. By reframing, you are not lying to yourself. You are selecting from many possible truths the one that helps you live with steadiness rather than despair. Notice how quickly small frustrations catch you when you do not reframe. You spill coffee, and your reflex is annoyance. You miss the bus, and your reflex is impatience. Modern life trains you for speed. Fix the problem, find the solution, move fast. But this reflex often leaves you more tense than before. The Stoic approach is slower, but far more freeing. Instead of spiraling in frustration, you can ask, what lens could I place on this? What if the spill is simply a reminder to slow down? What if missing the bus means gaining 10 minutes to breathe before the next ride? Nothing changes on the outside, but the story shifts inside, and that shift matters most. This is cognitive reframing at its core. Uncertainty often gnaws at us because we name it wrongly. You might call it threat, and your body tenses. But call it a field for practice, and you encounter it differently. Anxiety about the unknown becomes a call to patience training. Worry about failure turns into a chance to rehearse humility. Even sorrow can be reframed as the price of deep connection, teaching you to value time more fully. It is not denial. It is the art of selecting the most helpful interpretation rather than surrendering to the fastest, harshest one. Some worry that reframing is a trick, that it sugarcoats reality. But Stoicism is not about pretending hardship is not hard. Pain hurts, loss wounds, injustice stings. The reframing does not erase those truths. What it changes is the burden your mind adds on top of them. Without reframing, the story often multiplies pain through exaggeration. You tell yourself, this is unbearable. This is proof life is against me. This is permanent. With reframing, you recognize the pain without building a cage of words around it. You retain power by naming events in a way that keeps you mobile, flexible, still able to act. Let's return to the rain as a simple image. Picture yourself setting out for a walk, and suddenly the clouds open. Without reframing, anger rises. You mutter about bad timing, about ruined shoes. With reframing, you tilt your face up and notice how the rain cools your body on a warm day. You name it gift rather than curse. Which frame actually helps you? Which makes the same reality heavier or lighter? The rain does not listen to your frustration, but your body and mind respond directly to your words. In practice, reframing is not a one-time lesson. It is daily, almost minute by minute. Thoughts arise quickly, attaching names to everything. Reframing means catching one or two of those quick labels and pausing. You ask, is this the only way to name it? Is there a frame that steadies rather than shakes me? Over time, the habit grows, and the gap between event and reaction widens. In that space, your power rests. Think of it like lifting stones. At first, each feels heavy and impossible. But repeated handling changes not the stones, but your strength. After weeks, lifting no longer drains you. It trains you. Stoic reframing works the same way. Each time you rename a so-called problem, you practice strength. In a year, storms that would once unsettle you feel different. They still strike, but you no longer collapse at the first gust. This practice restores a piece of control where so often life feels uncontrollable. You cannot dictate the weather, the words of others, the small setbacks waiting each day. But you can dictate the narrative you attach to them, and in that choice lives calm. It is as if the world presents you clay, rough and unshaped, and your task is to mold it. Events give you raw matter, but interpretation gives it form. So the takeaway here is straightforward. Words and labels matter. Shift the language you use, and reality itself feels lighter. A missed email stops being catastrophe and becomes pause. An obstacle stops being curse and becomes chance. A storm stops being chaos and becomes training ground. By choosing frames that help rather than hinder, you make life not easier, but more livable. Such inner retraining requires practice, but it opens into calm space. Once you learn that reframing is possible, you are less trapped by the reflex of fear or anger. You create ease where once there was only tension. And this clearing in the mind prepares you for the next idea, one born from Taoism, Wu-wei, effortless action, the art of moving with the flow instead of against it. 5. Wu-wei, effortless action. Imagine a river carving stone smooth without forcing itself. It does not strain, it does not rush, it simply moves with steadiness, and over time the stone yields. This picture captures one of Taoism's most important ideas, Wu-wei. The phrase is often translated as effortless action. And it sounds paradoxical, but it describes an approach to living where movement arises naturally, not from force, but from alignment with what already flows. To understand it, you can look at how often we push against life in small ways. Think about the nights when sleep escapes you. You lie awake, and the harder you press for sleep, the further it drifts. The mind commands, rest now, be quiet now, close your eyes now. Yet the body resists. The effort thickens into frustration, and suddenly the bed feels like stone. On another night, when you stop trying, when you let your body sink and accept what comes, sleep arrives quietly. The difference is not in the conditions of the night, but in your stance toward them. That is the direction Wu Wei points you toward, not fighting what is already moving, but finding its rhythm and joining it. In much of Western thought, progress is tied to pushing. Harder work brings greater reward. Effort is proof of worth. This has value in many places, but it can lead to a constant struggle with yourself and the world. Taoism notices not every obstacle is solved through pressure. Some soften when you step aside, when you pivot instead of crash forward. Wu Wei is not laziness. It is not withdrawal. It is choosing action that harmonizes with the structure of things. Take water as the guide. Water has no rigid shape, but it never fails to reach the sea. It accepts the form of what contains it, yet with time it shapes valleys and cliffs. To move like water is to accept both limits and freedom. Taoism encourages you to see resistance as wasted energy. In daily life, this could mean releasing control over small details and trusting the situation to manage itself. It could mean acting softly, speaking with less urgency, or responding to conflict without immediate defense. All of these form the texture of Wu Wei. Imagine someone lost in a forest. Panic might tell them to thrash through the trees, shouting, running without direction. They stumble deeper, growing more exhausted. But if they pause, breathe, and notice the sound of running water, a new choice appears. Following the stream does not demand blind struggle. The stream carries them to an opening, and from an opening comes the way back home. Nothing was abandoned, action still occurred, but it came from listening to the shape of what was already present. This small story hides a wider truth. When you relax into the patterns of life, guidance emerges where before there seemed only chaos. Wu Wei reduces friction. Tasks that once felt heavy can unfold with less effort. Conflict that once demanded endless battle can soften through patience. Even your own body moves with more ease when you stop pressing it to respond at every second. Think about how this shows itself in work. If you force creativity, straining to invent, your mind grows tighter until ideas dry up. If you let the process breathe, if you walk, rest, or shift focus for a while, the current of thought begins moving again, carrying a solution forward. If you try to control every single detail of a conversation, the other person stiffens. If you remain calm, allowing space, the dialogue bends naturally to a better place. Each of these mirrors the way the river carves stone, while never appearing to exert itself. Taoism trusts in flow because life itself is movement. Seasons shift, bodies change, circumstances rise and fall. To force stillness against an ever-moving current brings exhaustion. To align with the current brings energy. Wu Wei is the art of that alignment. It does not mean absence of decision. It does not deny hardship. It simply says that direction often exists if you are willing to soften enough to see it. There is a quiet paradox here. You achieve more peace when you stop pressing yourself to achieve. You sleep more deeply when you stop commanding sleep. You find your way out of the forest when you stop sprinting in circles and begin to notice the stream. Action is still present, but it comes without the drag of resistance. This is the calm power of Wu Wei. The lesson then is both simple and radical. You do less, but you gain more peace. You allow rather than demand. You follow the shape of things instead of forcing them. Each time you notice life's current and let yourself float, you conserve energy once spent resisting. Over time, this conservation turns into strength, the same way the river grows wide and steady by flowing rather than by pushing. It asks for trust, the trust that movement exists without your desperate control. But what anchors that trust? What gives foundation to the sense that you can let go into flow? Both Taoism and Stoicism point to one shared truth: the impermanence. Everything changes. Events rise and fade. Seasons roll over each other endlessly. What you resist will shift with or without your will. And so, the next step is to face impermanence directly, to let it teach not fear, but a deeper peace. 6. Impermanence as a teacher. What if the one constant in life is change itself? You may search for solid ground, something that stays fixed no matter how much shifts around you, but every part of life points back to movement. Seasons pass, bodies age, relationships alter. Even the thoughts in your mind today will not stay the same tomorrow. Both Taoist and Stoic traditions remind us over and over that impermanence is not an exception to life. It is life. In Taoism, this truth is expressed through the rhythm of the Tao, the endless unfolding and returning of all things. The river, the clouds, the blossoms, each move toward transformation without apology. In Stoicism, impermanence is approached through reason, a sober encounter with time's passing. Seneca, one of its teachers, insisted that much of life slips through our hands before we even notice it. He wrote that time is a river, a violent current of events, glimpsed once and already carried past us, and another follows and is gone. Just as no drop of water remains in the same place, no moment can be grasped for long. This creates a tension you probably feel often. Modern life trains you to believe permanence is possible if only you hold tight enough. We store memories in devices so they will not fade. We build routines designed to insulate us from change. We try to freeze youth, holding back the body's shifting tide. And yet, no matter how much effort, change continues. The contradiction is sharp. Human desire leans toward permanence, but the natural world offers only flux. Imagine standing at the shore with waves rushing toward you. You want to keep one perfect ripple. You reach out, grab, cling. But the tighter your grasp, the more salt water fills your mouth. The wave does not pause because you wish it so. You swallow discomfort not from the water itself, but from resisting its flow. Life works in the same way. Cling to moments, cling to objects, cling to identities, and stress grows. The waves were never yours to cage. Seneca understood that suffering comes from this refusal. He reminded his readers that each day must be lived as if it could dissolve at sunset, because it might. This is not morbid, it is clarifying. When you know time cannot be paused, you stop wasting your effort pretending it can. You allow yourself to actually notice the morning light, the sound of wind, the face of the person sitting across from you. Each becomes precious because each is perishable. Taoism carries a similar softness. It does not frame impermanence as threat, but as natural music. Change is not your enemy. Change is what lets things grow, what keeps rivers alive rather than stagnant. By letting go, not in defeat, but in trust, You discover an ease in every breath. Even the practice of Wu Wei rests on this trust. You do not need to force events into permanence because you already know they will shift. You loosen your grip and let current guide you, not because you lack strength, but because you know the current carries you either way. The stress of clinging is plain in daily life. You worry over a plan rearranged, a lost item, a shift in someone's mood. You believe stability depends on holding all parts still. Yet life will not hold still. Attempts to force permanence consume far more energy than acceptance would require. Imagine trying to stop autumn leaves from falling by taping them to their branches. By the time you finish one, 3 more have loosened. The leaves are meant to fall, and your obsession to keep them fixed pulls you far from peace. Impermanence, accepted, becomes a teacher. If time slips through the hands, gratitude grows for what remains now. If people cannot stay forever, affection deepens while they are present. If each hour vanishes, focus sharpens on this one. Loss no longer surprises you, because you knew all along everything moves toward loss. Strangely, it makes connection richer, not thinner. Existential philosophy echoes this insight. For Camus, impermanence and the universe's silence produce what he called the absurd. We long for permanence and for ultimate meaning, but we meet a world that does not provide it. Rather than despair, he urged revolt, a steady choice to live, to create, to affirm life in spite of its change. This is liberty. Meaning is not found outside you. It is shaped by you, even knowing time will erase it later. The joy is found in the act of carving meaning into shifting ground. If this sounds heavy, remember the payoff. Endurance does not come from resisting impermanence. Resistance is impossible. Endurance comes from moving with it like a swimmer who trusts the waves. You breathe with each rise and fall, knowing some strokes are harder, but the sea itself carries you forward. Time flickers and fades, but in flowing with it, you discover calm. So how do you practice this? Begin with small acknowledgments. Notice one thing around you right now that will not last. A sound, a flicker of light, even your breath. Accept it. Let it arrive and let it leave. Then notice another. In each, say to yourself, this too passes, and that is its beauty. Slowly, you teach the mind to stop clinging, and stress begins to ease. All philosophies we have touched return here. Stoicism urged sober acceptance of time already slipping. Taoism urges harmony with constant change. Existentialism urges you to craft meaning anyway. Together, they point to freedom. By recognizing impermanence, the fear of loss loosens. Gratitude rises. Focus settles here, where life actually touches you. In this way, impermanence is not a curse, but a guide. It keeps you awake to the fact that nothing waits. It teaches presence, humility, and above all, trust that each wave, though passing, is still part of the same boundless sea. And now, since change can never be rushed, the next step is to speak of patience. How to trust not only the passing of time, but the pacing of it. From impermanence, we move to the discipline of waiting, not as weakness, but as strength. 7. The skill of patience. Why do we treat patience as waiting when it is more like trusting? The very word patience often makes people think of sitting still, doing nothing, or standing in line while time drags on. But when you look more closely, Especially through the lenses of Taoism and Stoicism, patience becomes something deeper than a pause. It is an active relationship with time. It is trust that things unfold at their right pace. It is strength, not stagnation. Taoism places patience among its quiet virtues. To live in alignment with the Tao means learning the rhythm of things, which cannot be rushed. The tree cannot be forced taller by pulling at its trunk. The moon cannot be pushed faster across the sky. Taoist wisdom reminds you that trying to rush life is like trying to rush a river. You stir the water, but you do not make it reach the sea more quickly. Patience, then, is not weak toleration. It is active alignment, a decision to let life come forward in its time. If Taoism teaches patience as alignment, Stoicism teaches patience as endurance. The Stoic tradition speaks of bearing what is heavy without breaking. Not because the weight disappears, but because the inner stance changes. Endurance is not passivity. It is meeting the test of time by refusing to surrender your calm or your reason. Patience, in this sense, is discipline. It is how you preserve integrity even when the outer world does not obey your will. Here lies the tension with modern culture. We live in a time that sees waiting as weakness. Waiting at a screen while a page loads feels unbearable. Waiting in traffic for a few extra minutes creates anger out of proportion with the event. Messages that do not receive instant replies spark unease. Everything is accelerated. Everything is on demand. Culture suggests that delays announce failure. Taoism and Stoicism both break that illusion. They remind you that life's deepest processes are not instant. They move in cycles slower than your impatience prefers. Imagine a seed dropped into fertile soil. You could stand above it, command it, demand that it sprout. You could water it 20 times a day, peel back the dirt to see if anything is happening. Even set lamps to mimic sunlight through the night. Yet all this does not encourage growth. It disturbs it. Roots must spread unseen before the stem rises. Forcing bloom ruins the very possibility of life. But when you trust, when you water gently and allow time, a seed becomes what it was meant to become. This is patience as a living truth. You practice this every day, though often without noticing. Think about traffic. You may sit still on a crowded road, horns sounding, lights glowing red up ahead. Anxiety creeps in with thoughts of being late. The cultural reflex says this is wasted time. But another option is possible. That waiting offers a chance to breathe, to let music play, to loosen the rush inside the body. The red light then becomes an ally, not an enemy. The outer stillness becomes inner recovery. Or picture yourself checking for news, an application result, a reply from a friend, an answer to a request. Hours pass, no message comes. Modern training tightens you quickly. They ignored me. This must be bad news. Yet this delay says little on its own. The pause is simply pause. You can fill it with restless stories, or you can use it as practice. If you breathe, trust, and accept, the pause ceases to harm you. Time moves at its own measure, and worry gains you nothing. What patience gives you is breathing room. Without it, you burn through energy fighting what you can accelerate. Think of how much stress grows out of the word now. I must have answers now. I must reach results now. I must move forward now. These demands create a constant strain on mind and body. But when patience enters, this strain softens. Events still come, but they come as they always would, without the extra weight of your restlessness. Patience conserves the energy otherwise lost to that fight. Psychological studies confirm what philosophy has suggested all along. The simple act of patience reduces stress. When you align with time's flow, blood pressure lowers, breathing deepens, mood steadies. It is not the number of minutes that causes distress. It is the story about those minutes, the recoil against them. By cultivating patience, you rewrite the story. Waiting is no longer meaningless. It becomes part of the process, as vital as the action that follows. Seen fully, patience is not absence. It is presence stretched over time. It does not mean doing nothing, but doing the right thing without the pressure of anxious speed. In Taoism, patience means living with trust in the Tao, knowing events unfold when conditions ripen. In Stoicism, patience means facing delay and hardship with endurance, not surrendering reason to despair. In daily life, patience means practicing ease in the small pauses so that larger pauses do not overwhelm you. Think again about the seed. Its time in the soil is not wasted. Every hidden moment prepares the growth that later appears on the surface. Your own time and delay can be the same. Each moment of waiting holds the chance to rebuild calm, to redirect thought, to slow the heart. With patience, tomorrow's clarity is nourished by today's rest. Without it, tomorrow inherits the tension you never released. This virtue opens into freedom. If you can wait, you can live more lightly. Few things bind you. Urgency loosens its grip. You move with life instead of wrestling it. Anxiety fades not because life offers you perfect timing, but because you stop demanding that timing bend to you. In every pause, there is an opening. Patience is simply the art of entering those openings with trust. So the insight here is clear. Patience is not weakness, not passivity, not wasted time. It is trust in process. It is alignment with what unfolds. It is endurance that keeps you steady when the world slows. It restores energy that would otherwise drain away, and it transforms moments of stillness into moments of deep presence. Alongside patience comes another companion. You might call it patience's twin. If patience teaches you how to meet time, simplicity shows you how to meet desire. When life is less crowded, patience becomes easier still. So next, we turn to simplicity, the power of clearing space in both the outer world and the inner mind. Word count 898. 8. The power of simplicity. Imagine trading a crowded shelf of desires for one clear cup of water. One leaves you overwhelmed, unsure even where to begin. And the other offers refreshment straight away. Taoist simplicity is built on this image. It is not only about clearing physical clutter, but also about releasing the constant demand for more. More ambition, more possessions, more recognition. Simplicity teaches that you do not need to multiply desires to live well. You need fewer desires, aligned with what matters most. When Taoist philosophy speaks of simplicity, it does not mean bleakness or denial of joy. Instead, it points you back toward natural balance. Nature never appears overstuffed. A tree grows in proportion to the space around it. A river fills its course, then empties into the sea. Taoist living follows this example. By stripping away excess and by asking less from the world, you allow a deeper calm to emerge. It applies both to objects you gather and to ambitions you chase. The fewer branches you extend in frantic directions, the stronger and steadier the trunk becomes. Modern life demands the opposite. Everything whispers, add more. More tasks to your calendar, more icons on your screen, more noise in your house, more thrill in your plans. Complexity is treated as normal, even admirable. Yet complexity tightens the body. It spreads your attention thin, scattering thought. It asks you to sprint while carrying a load of small burdens that may not serve you at all. The Taoist call to simplicity is quiet, but powerful. Live with less, so your mind and body can finally breathe. Consider something as small as your bedroom at night. If the shelves overflow, if piles of items catch the corner of your eye, if surfaces are stacked with reminders of unfinished duty, your mind stays alert long after lights are out. But if you clear away, if you leave empty spaces visible, the room begins to echo calm. Simplicity frees your mind from unnecessary cues. Fewer objects pull at your attention. Fewer reminders push into your head. You fall asleep not surrounded by constant symbols of work undone but by stillness. This principle also threads through Stoicism. Stoic minimalism teaches that outer simplicity prepares room for inner virtue. When you are less occupied by what you own, you have more space to practice courage, temperance, justice, and wisdom. If you spend hours chasing possessions, the chase itself becomes your life. But when you reduce the chase, a gap opens. Into that gap enters reflection, kindness, steadiness, and the pursuit of what cannot be tarnished by time. Both Taoism and Stoicism argue that by making life lighter outwardly, you create inward weight that keeps you steady. Think about traveling with heavy luggage. Each extra bag slows you, exhausts you, distracts you. The more you carry, the fewer paths open because each step becomes effort. But with one small bag, you move freely. You adjust, you change course, you climb stairs without fear of strain. Simplicity functions like lighter baggage. It does not remove all hardship, but it frees you to meet hardship with less burden. You carry only what matters, leaving enough room to react with calm when the road shifts. Science even supports what Taoism and Stoicism intuited. Studies on clutter show that a crowded physical environment raises stress levels. Too much visual noise causes the brain to work harder, dividing attention and fueling anxiety. A simple practice like clearing a desk or organizing a closet often yields measurable drops in stress. What ancient teachers called virtue or harmony, modern research measures as calm in the body. Fewer items crowding your space means reduced signals tugging at your mind. Clutter is not only physical. Mental clutter has the same effect. Old grudges, half-formed regrets, anxious predictions for tomorrow. Each adds weight to the mind. Carrying them is like filling a shelf with objects you no longer use but cannot release. Taoism urges letting go of excess desire. Stoicism urges cleaning away unhelpful judgment. Modern practice mirrors this advice through journaling. Writing down thoughts clears inner space. Putting words onto paper allows the brain to release what no longer needs to circle endlessly. Just as removing physical objects eases a room, expressing thoughts eases the mind. Simplicity also changes your relationship with desire itself. With fewer wants, each fulfilled desire feels richer. Drinking water when thirsty is more satisfying than excess cups of wine when the body does not need them. Rest at night is deeper when your day has been steady, rather than packed beyond control. Taoist simplicity strips away what distracts so that direct joys return with strength. Eating when hungry, resting when tired, sharing time without looking at clocks. These become precious when life stops overflowing with unnecessary wants. Notice how this differs from the modern pattern. Modern life multiplies options, hundreds of channels, thousands of products, countless plans competing for attention. The promise is freedom. Often the effect is paralysis. You spend time choosing rather than living. Taoist simplicity erases those false choices by reminding you that less truly can be more. By closing doors, you enter the few rooms that nourish you. Here is the hidden payoff. Space itself is nourishing. Empty space in a room soothes the eyes. Empty space in the calendar frees energy. Empty space in thought grants rest. Just as silence in music gives shape to the notes, simplicity in life gives shape to meaning. The space you create is not void. It is possibility, peace, and potential. In practice, you do not need to empty your whole life at once. Begin small. Clear one corner, one drawer, one shelf. Notice the relief in that single space. Then bring the same practice inward. Let go of one grudge, one worry about tomorrow, one needless ambition. Simplicity grows piece by piece. Over time, it builds into calm, like a quiet room slowly filling with light. Once less binds you, peace appears naturally. Sleep arrives sooner, thought moves clearer. Moments of pause feel less threatening. You are no longer pulled in every direction, shackled by excess. You stand lighter, freer to notice life as it is, rather than as a crowded shelf of endless desires. With simplicity, patience deepens further, because time feels less like an enemy when life is no longer overloaded. And with simplicity and patience settled together, we move toward the Stoic core, the heart of their teaching, virtue. If simplicity clears space outward and patience steadies time inward, then virtue is what grows in that freed ground. 9. Virtue as inner compass. What if the highest good is not pleasure or comfort, but integrity? Picture how different life might feel if your measure of success wasn't wealth, recognition, or fleeting moments of joy, but a steady alignment with your principles. This shift stands at the core of Stoic teaching. They argued that everything external can come or go, but one thing remains within your control: your character. To them, virtue is not a means to happiness. Virtue itself is happiness. The Stoics named 4 pillars as the shape of virtue: courage, temperance, justice, and wisdom. Courage allows you to face fear without caving to it. Temperance keeps desire from owning you. Justice ensures your actions respect the ties you share with others. And wisdom sits at the center, the ability to see clearly what is within your control and what is not. This framework may sound lofty, but it is a practical guide. When choices arise, you can return to these 4 and ask, am I still aligned? Contrast this with what much of modern culture offers. Achievement is measured by numbers: how much you earn, how many admire you, how far you climb. Pleasure is treated as proof of success, and comfort is made the goal. But these goals shift constantly, depending on competition and circumstance. The more you pursue them, the more fragile your calm becomes, because anything outside you can be taken away. A market drops, a friend drifts away, a title is lost, and suddenly life feels empty again. Virtue does not vanish when conditions change. The courage you practice stays with you during both gain and loss. The temperance you refine steadies you whether a feast is before you or the table is bare. Justice, when lived sincerely, connects you to others no matter their response. Wisdom remains a compass regardless of what twists the road may take. These qualities, once cultivated, cannot be stripped from you the way wealth, status, or health can be. Imagine holding a compass in your hand as a storm breaks around you. Wind shifts, clouds block the sun, paths disappear under rain. Without a compass, you are lost, thrown into panic. With one, you may still face hardship, but your direction is steady. This is how virtue works. Life's weather changes constantly. External markers, success, praise, status, are like the sun and stars, useful when visible, but often obscured. Virtue functions as the internal compass. It points true regardless of the storm, and if you trust it, you stay oriented even when the way seems unclear. One small example might be the workplace. Around you, others may be praised for results reached unfairly or for compromises that trade integrity for gain. If your anchor lies only in achievement, you are pulled into envy or despair. But if your anchor lies in justice, holding to fairness even when ignored, then your sense of worth endures. You carry calm because your compass points to a higher good than temporary reward. This reframing changes pressure itself. Many feel crushed by stress because the center of life is placed outside, in someone else's opinion, a pile of possession, a fluctuating score of success. Bring the center back to virtue, and stress loses much of its sting. If your only demand is to act with courage, to remain tempered, to deal justly, and to seek wisdom, then success is always near at hand. Even hardship provides openings to exercise these traits. A challenge at work asks for courage. A temptation demands temperance. An unjust situation tests justice. A complex problem calls for wisdom. In this light, events become fields where virtue is practiced, not threats to your self-worth. Calm grows almost naturally when external success is no longer the central stage. You may still welcome pleasure and comfort, but they are no longer rulers of your mood. You may still strive for results, but you no longer mistake them for the definition of a good life. Instead, you measure by one standard. Did you live today with virtue? If yes, then no storm can erase your peace. This standpoint aligns with Taoist teaching as well. Taoism emphasizes harmony with the flow of life, choosing alignment over resistance. Stoicism emphasizes harmony within, integrity regardless of resistance. Though they sound different, both turn the gaze inward. Taoism says peace is found when you stop fighting the current. Stoicism says peace is found when your inner compass stays fixed, even as currents shift. Both lead to resilience, not because circumstances improve, but because your relationship with them transforms. There is also a hidden freedom here. If virtue is the highest good, then nothing external can rob you of a meaningful life. Others may insult you, fortune may abandon you, plans may fall apart, but as long as you hold courage, temperance, justice, and wisdom, you hold the essence of what it means to live well. This strips adversities of their deepest power. Sorrow, pain, and failure are still felt, but they are reframed as training grounds for the virtues that matter most. Return again to the compass analogy. the needle does not promise ease. It cannot erase storms or flatten mountains. Its gift is steadiness. In the same way, Stoic virtue does not remove suffering, but it prevents you from being blown off course. You may walk slowly in the storm, soaked and tired, but you walk toward true north. When you measure your days by virtue, not by comfort, life stabilizes. Ups and downs still occur, but they become surface ripples. The deeper current moves steadily, guided by inner integrity. That steadiness is calm itself. Pleasure will fade. Comfort will vanish. Recognition will shift. But a life shaped by virtue holds its center. This is why Stoicism can look severe at first glance. It asks you to turn from pleasures and comforts as goals. But the trade is profound. In giving up the fragile highs, you gain the unshakable ground beneath them. It is not denial, but replacement. Choosing what cannot be taken over what can vanish overnight. Seen alongside Taoism, this choice is not rigid, but balanced. Taoism tells you to flow with the external. Stoicism tells you to fix virtue as your inner compass. Both together give you a blend of softness and steadiness. You bend like water, but stand firm in your principles. This harmony prepares you to face life with clarity and peace. From here, philosophy takes one more turn. If Stoicism gives you a compass, Existentialism reminds you that you are the one holding it. The path is not already drawn. Freedom presses on you to choose, to act, to shape the course ahead. This next step deepens the commitment, bringing not just calm, but meaning formed out of freedom itself. Word count 898. 10. Existential freedom and responsibility. What if you are freer than you want to admit? It may sound strange, but much of the unease in life does not come from strict limits placed upon you. It comes from realizing how many choices are yours to make. Freedom often feels like lightness from the outside, but inside it can feel weighty, even crushing. To see this clearly, existential thinkers like Jean-Paul Sartre and Albert Camus asked us to face freedom head-on, not as an idea, but as the daily shape of our lives. Sartre claimed that existence precedes essence. This means you are not born with a fixed role or built-in purpose. There is no permanent design stamped onto you. Instead, you define yourself through the choices you make and the actions that follow. At first, this sounds like wide open possibility. Yet look closer. If no higher plan dictates what you are meant to be, then responsibility rests fully with you. Your life's direction is not carved ahead of time. You are the one holding the tools. Calm doesn't come from controlling life, but from releasing the need to. The more tightly you grip, the more restless you become. Letting go creates the space where quiet lives. Imagine water cupped in your hands, squeeze and it escapes. Rest your palm and it stays. As you drift into sleep tonight, let go of judgment, trust impermanence, and rest in your freedom. Notice how the storm outside you does not need to quiet for you to be still. Inner calm becomes unshakable, not because life is easy, but because you choose how to meet it.